Hello everyone, how you doing? So today I'll be going over the different gear settings for most automatics. As a heads up for this video, I will list the gear setting, tell you what it represents or what it means. I will tell you how to use the gear setting, when to use the gear setting. So please tune in and let's get started. The P gear setting over there is selected for three main reasons. The first reason for selecting the P gear setting is if you have intentions of starting the engine of any automatic. All automatic transmission cars are designed to start in two gear settings. So these two gear settings are the P and the N gear settings only. In any other gear setting, the engine will not be in position to start however much you try starting it by turning the key or pressing the push to start button. Nothing happens. The second reason for selecting the P gear setting is if you have intentions of getting the key out of the ignition switch. So any automatic transmission car that features a removable key ignition switch will only release the key to you, the driver, once the P gear setting is selected. By selecting the P gear setting, the ignition switch will be in position to turn all the way to the lock position. In the lock position, you can take the key out of the ignition switch. However, if another gear setting that is not P is selected, you will notice that the ignition switch of the car cannot turn to the lock position. The best it does is get to the SEC position. In the SEC position, you can't take the key out of the ignition switch. So this right here is my ignition switch, a removable key ignition switch. And as you can see from there, I'm currently within the P gear setting. When you look over here, you notice that I'm in position to turn to the front, and I can also turn all the way to the lock position and take the key out of the ignition switch just like that. If I was not in the P gear setting, the best I would do to turn this key would be SEC right around there. In SEC mode, you can't take the key out of the ignition switch. So if you wish to take the key out, you have to select the P gear setting first and then turn the key to the lock position and get it out of the ignition switch just like that. So I hope that is clear. The last reason for selecting the P gear setting is if you have intentions of parking and exiting your car, leaving it by itself. Why do you select the P gear setting? By selecting the P gear setting, the transmission locks up the wheels that push the car, or the driving wheels. When that happens, it guarantees that the car stays where you left it by the time of parking. So added to the deployment of the parking brake, selecting the P gear setting guarantees you each and every time to always find your vehicle where you parked it. It will not roll away or move even when you're not inside. So how do you select the P gear setting? Well, to select the P gear setting, you will have to first make sure that the car is not moving. You achieve that by using the foot brake to get the car to a controlled stop. Thereafter, you will deploy the parking brake and finalize by getting the shifter into the P gear setting. Do not select the P gear setting when the car is still moving. Doing that will ruin the transmission, inviting a huge repair bill. The R gear setting over there is selected if you have intentions of reversing or driving the car in reverse. How do you select the R gear setting? To select the R gear setting, you will have to first get the car to a complete stop by fully pressing down the brake pedal. Thereafter, you will select the R gear setting. So the N gear setting is selected for three main reasons. The first reason is if you have intentions of starting the engine of any automatic. At the start of this video, I told you that automatics are designed to only start in two gear settings. So these two gear settings are the P and the N gear settings only. In any other gear setting, the engine will not start. The second reason for selecting the N gear setting is if you have intentions of getting your car towed. So getting towed is getting your car pulled by another car. So for example, your car has broken down and it can't keep going on its own. In such a situation, you may call a tow truck or a tow vehicle. So if you are to get your vehicle towed by that other tow truck, then you have to first make sure that the wheels of the car are completely free. So by selecting the N gear setting, the transmission will free up those driving wheels, making it easier for the car to get towed without causing damage to the transmission. The last reason to select the N gear setting is if you have intentions of temporarily waiting on a given part of the road while staying within your car. So you wish to wait by a given part of the road temporarily while also staying within your car. So situations of this kind are similar to this. First, you could be driving and you are probably waiting for a traffic light to turn from red to green for you to go. Alternatively, you could be waiting in a long queue of traffic that is not flowing, meaning that you have to wait over a prolonged period of time. Third, you could have intentions of picking up, let's say, a customer from the roadside or letting someone out of your car to the roadside. All those situations require you to select the N gear setting from a moving gear like D. So here is why the N gear setting is the best option to use in such situations. First and foremost, if you look at the layout over here, you notice that the N and the D gear settings are much closer to each other. They are neighbors. From the N gear setting to the D gear setting is one push to the back, and from the D gear setting to the N gear setting is one push to the front. So this means that the car is much easier to ready up to get going from a complete stop or wait. So if you've been waiting in the N gear setting, you would simply push the shifter one click back or one step back into the D gear setting and you're ready to roll. If you have to wait once again, it's just a simple push to the front back to the N gear setting. Lastly, selecting the N gear setting for such situations saves the transmission from overheating. Overheating of any kind happens this way. So for example, you've selected the D gear setting. The D gear setting gives the vehicle the command to move. However, you are momentarily waiting, for example, in traffic, or you're waiting for a traffic light to turn from red to green for you to go. When you leave the transmission in the D gear setting, yet the vehicle is not moving, then the transmission is going to overheat. When it overheats, it will break down. So to avoid that, you go from the D gear setting to the N gear setting to give the transmission a break. When the chance to get going comes up once again, then you can go from the N gear setting to the D gear setting and you're ready to roll. Real quick, the D gear setting is selected for normal driving. So normal driving covers driving at slow speed, at mid speed, and at high speed or cruising speed. Why is the D gear setting the best choice for such a situation? When the D gear setting is selected, the transmission is in position to shift from the lowest to the highest gear, depending on how hard you are accelerating or braking and the speed at which your vehicle is currently traveling. So your job is to press the gas pedal or brake, and the car system will determine and select the appropriate gear for that given speed and acceleration that you are currently using. To select the D gear setting, there is a transmission killer to be extremely cautious about. Before selecting the D gear setting from the reverse gear setting, you will have to first get the car to a full complete stop using the foot brake. So if you've been reversing in the R gear setting, you will have to first fully press down the foot brake to get the car to a full complete stop, and thereafter select the D gear setting. Do not straight up select the D gear setting from the R gear setting when the car has been moving in reverse. First get it to a complete stop and then go from the R to the D gear setting safely. That way the transmission will not die. The 3-gear setting over there will restrict the transmission to the first 3 gears, meaning that when selected, the transmission will shift through first, second, and third gears only. The 3-gear setting works just like the overdrive function, Remember, not all automatic transmission cars have a 3-gear setting fitted. Some have it while others do not have it. For vehicles that feature the overdrive function, when the overdrive function is disengaged, the transmission will shift through first, second, and third gears only. And when the overdrive function is re-engaged, then the transmission will be in position to shift from the lowest to the highest gears supported. The 3-gear setting is selected to accomplish any task that requires the car to be within the first 3 gears. So these tasks can be, for example, you wish to overtake. You're on a highway, you wish to overtake someone, you're pressing on the gas pedal, but the car is not getting you to the speed that you should be at when overtaking. In such a situation, you would go from the D gear setting to the 3-gear setting to get that extra boost in power to complete the overtaking maneuver. But be cautious and remember to always go from the 3-gear setting back to the D gear setting such that the transmission can shift to higher gears to keep you going. Next situation to use the 3-gear setting is if you intend to engine brake. Engine braking involves using the transmission and the engine collectively to slow down the speed of the car. So when engine braking with a 3-gear setting, the speed of the car will not go past 60 kilometers per hour. So if you have to engine brake and your intention is to maintain a speed that is 60 kilometers an hour or less, then you can select the 3-gear setting over there. Then you could also select the 3-gear setting if you have intentions of slightly cruising while towing. In towing, you need to use extremely much power from the car. But you could get to a point and the course is clear and you wish to slightly cruise. So you would use the 3-gear setting to offer you the open chances of the mid speed. So by selecting the 3-gear setting, you can slightly cruise while also towing. So how do you select the 3-gear setting without causing damage to the transmission and engine? Well, to select the 3-gear setting, you have to first make sure that the speed of your car falls within the operating range of 3rd gear. So this means that the speed of your car should not go past 80 kilometers an hour. It can be 80 or less, and then shift into the 3-gear setting. Some vehicles are quite tolerant and they can go up to 90 kilometers an hour. But to play it safe and to avoid a jerky gear downshift, you should be at 80 tops or less. Then select the 3-gear setting. Do not be driving at a speed of, let's say, 170 and you attempt to do a gear downshift into the 3-gear setting. That's one easy way of inviting a huge repair bill. You could look at an engine replacement and a transmission replacement, depending on the severity of the damage that has happened on the car. Why? If you decide to do a gear downshift into the 3-gear setting at such a high speed, the revs will shoot extremely high and redline the engine. Once the engine is redlined, it means that it's going to break down anytime sooner. The 2-gear setting restricts the transmission to using the first 2 gears, first and second gears only, nothing more. So the 2-gear setting will be selected to accomplish any task that requires the car to be within the first 2 gears. So such tasks usually demand for more power than what D and 3 have to offer. The 2-gear setting can be used in situations like driving up a hilly road. So you can agree with me that most automatics tend to get sluggish on hilly roads. So to avoid that, you can go from the D gear setting to the 2-gear setting to restrict the transmission to using the first 2 gears. That way, the vehicle is more powerful and it's able to get up or to drive up that hilly road much quicker and much faster. You could also use the 2-gear setting to engine brake. However, when engine braking with a 2-gear setting, the speed of the car will not go past 40 kilometers per hour. Have that at the back of your mind. To safely shift down into the 2-gear setting without causing damage to the transmission and engine, you have to first make sure that the speed of your car falls within the operating range of second gear. So you have to first make sure, before you shift down into the 2 setting, that your speed does not go past 60 kilometers per hour, which is right around there. So you should be at 60 or less. Then you may shift down into the 2 gear setting. That way it will be a smooth gear downshift. Avoid shifting down into the 2 gear setting at extremely high speeds like 140. If you decide to shift down into the 2 gear setting at such a high speed, then you're going to rev the engine so high that the engine is going to rev so high and redline to around there. When that happens and the engine is redlined, then catastrophic failure is bound to happen. That is a huge repair bill. The L or the 1 gear setting will restrict the transmission to first gear, meaning that the transmission will keep in first gear and no other gear. L or 1 gear setting is the strongest gear setting that the transmission has, and it is used to accomplish any task that requires maximum power. L or 1 will help you accomplish tasks like towing another car from a complete stop or pulling it out of a sticky situation. Such a demanding task calls for maximum power from the car. So to accomplish that, you have to select the L or the 1 gear setting. Secondly, your car could be loaded with cargo and you have to drive up a hilly road. To achieve that, you have to select the L or the 1 gear setting to get maximum power to help you drive up that hill without any issues. Alternatively, you could use the L or the 1 gear setting to engine brake. Once again, your car could be loaded with cargo and you wish to drive down a slope. Any loaded car is extremely heavy and you cannot leave the entire weight of the car upon the brakes to deal with. So what you will do, you may have to engine brake with the L or the 1 gear setting. However, if you are to brake with the L or the 1 gear setting, the speed of the car should not go past 15 kilometers per hour. To select the L or the 1 gear setting, you have to first make sure that the speed of your car falls within the operating range of first gear. So the operating range for first gear is 20 kilometers an hour or less. So your speed should be 20 at most or less, and then shift down into the L or the 1 gear setting. Avoid shifting down into the L or the 1 gear setting at higher speeds like, let's say, 80 kilometers an hour. This is an invitation of a huge repair bill. You could look at an engine or a transmission replacement, if not both, depending on the severity of the damage that has happened to the car. So to avoid that, make sure that the speed is 20 kilometers an hour or less, and then shift down into the L or the 1 gear setting. Well, that sums it up for today's video. If you've learned something new from it, kindly leave the video a like by hitting the like button and subscribe to get notifications when videos of this kind are uploaded to this channel. That's it. I wish you guys all the best. Stay safe on the road, drive carefully, and respect each other. Until next time, we meet in the next video. Bye bye.